Everyone, welcome. This morning, I'm Anita Huberman. I'm President and CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade. And my colleagues from the South Surrey White Rock Chamber of Commerce are also with me too. And we will soon be the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade. And to both of our organizations, childcare has been an absolute priority in driving the economy forward. And I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded territory of our Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Tawasin, Kaikut, Coquitlam, Inuit, and our Métis peoples. They have a profound connection to the land and water that surround the great cities of Surrey and White Rock. I would like to acknowledge also that it is Child Care Provider Appreciation Day as well. And I'm sure Minister Dean is going to speak to that as well. Just a couple of instructions. We are going to hear from the minister, but she does want to hear from you. And I think the main thing is we want to be respectful in ensuring that we have childcare opportunities in both the not-for-profit and private sector ecosystems. And they both play a role in ensuring that we are driving our workforce development initiatives forward, where every single person matters. But one of the key aspects of Minister Dean's presentation is to ensure that we have access to quality and affordable childcare. In 2008, we actually were the first organization to write a policy to the federal government and to the provincial government on how childcare is an economic imperative in driving our economy forward. And from there, others joined us, and we've seen during the pandemic and post-pandemic how important and integral childcare is to our economy. It's actually one of our economic ingredients in the overall recipe to drive everything forward to enhance our livability for residents as well as for our business community. So if you do have a question, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand after the minister speaks. I ask you to ensure that your comment or question is very brief, 1 minute only. I will cut you off because the minister needs to respond in turn. We only have until 11:15 with her. And we're very thankful and grateful that she's spending this time with us today. But she's looking for ideas, she's looking for challenges and opportunities. And Minister, over to you.
Thank you so much, Anita. I really appreciate your introduction, appreciate you acknowledging the traditional territory as well. And I'm sure there are people on this call from different traditional territories too. And thank you for acknowledging that it's Childcare Providers Appreciation Day today, and for acknowledging the significant contribution that childcare makes to local economies and the provincial economy as well. And I really appreciate the opportunity of saying a few words and then getting into a conversation with who are here today. I want to start off by showing my deep appreciation and respect for the Lekwungen peoples, known as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, on whose land that I work and live. And that protocol is very, very important to me, especially because I represent those two nations in the provincial legislature, along with Chianu Nation as well. Joining me today, I have a couple of staff. We have Patty Boyle, Assistant Deputy Minister in Childcare Division, and Teresa Butler, Executive Director from Childcare Policy. It is Childcare Provider Appreciation Day today, so it's a really appropriate day for us to be thinking about and valuing and recognising childcare and everyone who is part of that sector as well. And, you know, this is a great opportunity for me to share my absolute steadfast dedication and my gratitude for the steadfast dedication and the hard work of childcare professionals They provide compassionate, wholehearted support and early learning to children and their families. And I see this firsthand when I go and visit childcare centres. The children are so happy. I see the frontline workers turn everything into a learning and teaching opportunity, and the kids are still happy and playing, and yet they're learning and they're meeting developmental milestones as well. In fact, previously, I was responsible for a childcare centre, and it was actually located in a high school as well. So, you know, I feel like the work that we're doing now with childcare being so closely aligned with education, we're working so closely with school districts that, you know, I understand the nuts and bolts for operators, and I also know the first-hand benefits for student parents and for the whole school community as well. And I know that for far too long, childcare was left to market forces. And I can tell you from my own community that it left families really struggling with finding care or being able to afford care. Parents in my community, which is to the west of downtown Victoria, and where most of the congestion is during commute times, were actually commuting for childcare if they had it, and then commuting for their work as well, which you can, you know, imagine is not a good quality experience for families, and it's not good for the environment either. And what I hear nowadays is that affordable childcare is life-changing for families, but it's also good for our communities and for our local and provincial economies. And it really enables people to return to the workforce or to get into training, and it really benefits women as well. Between January 23 and January 2024, 36,000 more women participated in the workforce here in British Columbia as business owners or team members or frontline workers, but returning to the workforce and supporting local businesses and local economy as well. So we know that affordable, quality, inclusive childcare is a key to labour force participation for women. And for too long, childcare was out of reach for many families because it wasn't affordable. But since forming government, we've reduced the average childcare fees from $45 a day down to $18 a day. And that's more than a 50% reduction, and we're not done. We have a vision, we have a plan. Today, through one or more of our programs, we're reducing the cost of childcare for families of over 148,000 children. And we've now reached 15,000 $10 a day spaces throughout BC. And these families are saving over $10,000 a year per child on their childcare costs. And 600 of those spaces are right here in Surrey, delivered through 12 participating centres. But it's really important as well to highlight that that isn't the only way we're helping families with the cost of childcare. We have a range of programmes and subsidies that families are able to access through licensed childcare providers who sign up to our programmes. In Surrey alone, I can tell you the families of over 9,800 children, kindergarten age and younger, accessing care in participating licensed childcare programme are saving up to $900 per month per child. And again, in Surrey, families of over 4,900 children in preschool or before and after school are saving up to $145 per month per child, because we know that childcare doesn't stop when children start school. The families of 5,500 children in Surrey that need further financial support are accessing the affordable childcare benefit each month, which provides up to $1,250 per month per child to further reduce parent fees. So some parents are actually not paying any fees at all for childcare. And we're also supporting nearly 50 no-fee childcare spaces in Surrey at 2 Aboriginal Head Start programmes, an early learning and childcare programme for Indigenous children 6 years and under. And this provides wraparound family support and inclusion services. So we're seeing how these measures are helping parents to make different choices. They have options now about going back to work, about going into training. And we know that we have really high needs in terms of the workforce, not just the capacity, but also the skill set as well. So through these affordability measures, since 2018, and I'm sure your members will be interested in this because it's money that's returning to the local economy. We have put over $283 million back into the pockets of Surrey families. And that includes $92 million this year. And as I said, I'm sure you can understand how that really contributes to the local economy. It helps businesses grow. It's helping businesses recover from the pandemic and making Surrey a vibrant community. Now, we know that making childcare more affordable is only one of the challenges that families face. And everyone here will know that Surrey is seeing record growth and young families are struggling to find childcare. So since we started our Childcare BC plan in 2017-2018, the number of licensed childcare spaces in Surrey has expanded from 11,100 to 15,000. That is a 35% increase for the community of Surrey alone. And this significant expansion has been supported through direct investments from the province. Since 2018, we have funded the creation of over 34,000 new childcare spaces across BC. 4,500 of those are in Surrey, and 2,000 of those are already open and serving families. But of course, we can't deliver more spaces, and there is no early learning and childcare without the early childhood educators who teach and care for our children at some of the most important times in their lives. ECEs are a vital part of families' lives, our vibrant communities, and this work wouldn't get done without them. That's why we're making it easier for people to become ECEs by helping with the cost of education and by streamlining pathways for international ECEs. We've also increased wages by $6 per hour, and we're providing better access to education and professional development for early childhood professionals who want to advance their careers and who are motivated as well to continue their learning and stay in the profession and contribute to the sector. Over 1,700 ECEs in Surrey are receiving this wage enhancement, and that has contributed across the province to increasing the median hourly wage to $29 an hour province-wide. Surrey also has multiple opportunities for those interested in getting into the field to pursue their studies at ECE registry recognised post-secondary institutions. 1 public and 3 private post-secondaries in Surrey offer courses and programmes supporting quality education of ECEs. So we've made significant progress on our Childcare BC plan to make access to affordable, quality, inclusive and culturally safe early learning and childcare a core service that families can rely on. And we know there's more work to be done, and we want to be doing that in partnership with key stakeholders in the sector and to increase that capacity of the workforce and increase the spaces of good quality, inclusive early learning and childcare. So I look forward. I feel so honoured to have this role and to have had experience in this field as well. I look forward to making even more progress on our goals. As we know, as you said, Anita, early learning and childcare is a critical service, not just for families, but also for local and provincial economic development as well. So thank you again for having me come and talk to you. I look forward to hearing responses from other people who are on the call and any questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Minister. And everyone, now is the time for your questions and comments. I ask you again to raise your hands, and I will recognize you accordingly. So use the raise hand function in the Zoom technology. Keep your comment or question very brief. The minister will respond in turn, and please be respectful. MP Hardy, over to you.
Thank you, Anita and Minister Dean. Such excellent work from BC. Certainly from the federal point of view, we don't have a better partner across Canada than British Columbia when it comes to, getting things done. Some of the statistics that you noted, does that include the federal contribution? I think that I'm just looking at some data here. In March, we announced 70 million for about 930 new, childcare spaces at $10 a day. Everything BC is doing is over and above that, is it?
The dollar figures that I've been providing today for Surrey include both provincial and federal funding.
Okay, good. Well, as I say, it's a great partnership and it's really making a difference. We did note, by the way, that the participation rate in the labor force by, women of working age has gone up to a record high level. It's over 86%. And simply because, they're not, they can afford childcare and they can afford to go to work, which of course covers some of the, the jobs that have been going wanting because people, haven't been able to take them. So it's been, I think, a very good thing all the way around. Thank you for this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it really reveals the inequity of not providing childcare, that the barriers are experienced so much more by women than by men wanting to enter the workforce. The other thing that we're seeing that I hear from childcare resource and referral centres is the increase in requests for childcare. So people are seeing that it's actually a realistic option now. Previously, it wasn't, and I have friends who are still in debt because they paid for childcare. But people actually do want to have options. They want to retrain. They want to get back into the workforce, and it just wasn't something that they thought was an option because either they couldn't find it or it wasn't affordable. So it's quite a revelation, actually, that people do want to make their contribution to the economy and pursue a career as well. And it's so invaluable. Thank you so much, MP Hardy. It's just absolutely invaluable having the federal the partnership with the federal government. That's really helping us build a system, and we're able to really increase the affordability, the inclusion, the access for British Columbia families. So, we raise our hands to you and say thank you to you for that as well.
Minister, we have a question in the chat function from Sharon Gregson, longtime childcare advocate. Can you tell us about the wage grid that has been promised for the childcare sector? 7 other provinces and territories have implemented provincial wage grids, but BC has not.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Sharon and I have regular conversations about all the different aspects of building this core service, and there isn't one solution that's going to help us move from what was a real patchwork system, and it remains a complex system, to a core service that we want to provide across the whole of the province. So at some of the what previously were the $10 a day early implementation sites, we are testing an operating funding model. And part of that operating funding model is the wage grid for ECEs. So we know, and I know this from having delivered having been responsible for a childcare centre as well. There's a range of access to benefits, access to pension, health benefits, etc. There's a real range across the whole of the province. So as part of the test for the operating funding model, we are looking at a wage grid that would actually look at the whole financial model of the fee structure, so the revenues coming in, the fee reduction initiatives and the government funding initiatives, and then also looking at the investment in the workforce, and making sure that we're able to recognise and value the ECEs who, you know, deliver these services and who are responsible for the care and education for the youngest British Columbians at such a critical time, of their life and their development as well. We know that across the country, the systems that are in operation in other provinces and territories are different and can't be compared to British Columbia. You know, as I said, we inherited a real patchwork of a system where, you know, parents were very desperate for childcare and were paying an awful lot of money for childcare if they could find it as well. And there are many others, I'm sure your members and people on the call know, you know, many other provinces and territories that are much smaller, and, you know, are able to have different responses and systems, just because of whatever the provincial and federal government are inheriting there, and just because the populations are much smaller as well. So, you know, we've as I said in my earlier notes, we've increased the hourly rate by $6 an hour. The average hourly rate now received by ECEs is $29 an hour. We're doing the testing of the operating funding model, and part of that is an evaluation of the wage grid. And so we'll continue to learn from those tests, and we will make some decisions and continue to hear from the sector and advocates like Sharon about the wage grid for ECs.
Minister, I'm just going to take 3 questions, if you could write them down, and then you can respond, just so we can move faster in the agenda. So Randall, then Leslie, and then Candace.
Thank you so much, Anita, and thank you, Minister Dean. Great to see you again. Thanks for all the improvements that you made with ECE and BC. I'm just wondering, so I'm Vice President External Affairs for Kwantlen Polytechnic University, and we are currently delivering Capilano's ECE program because there's been a moratorium on ECE programs, and we would like to deliver our own. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you could do to lift the moratorium or have a pilot project perhaps for KPU where we could deliver hopefully next year our own ECE program. You may have also noticed that we received a contribution from Métis BC, where they are contributing to a daycare construction at our Surrey campus. And so having our own program would go very well with that. So anything you could do to help us with that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Leslie.
I was just curious, thank you for having us, sir. But I was just curious if there was any plans on finding ways to remove red tape for businesses to put daycare in their factories, businesses, and so forth, where we have actually a couple people in the neighborhood here that were also trying to do daycare. We originally did at the beginning, and we just gave up because we could build a manufacturing plant, move in equipment and everything 2 years before we could even talk about getting to the part of daycare. So it's very cumbersome and very difficult to get through all the permitting and everything else for daycare. So it'd be nice to see a clear forward plan for business owners and to be able to create daycare spaces within their facilities.
Thank you, Leslie. I'll go to the chat questions in a moment, but Shyam, you go next.
First off, thank you so much for the work that you've already done. My wife's an ECE teacher, and so I've noticed firsthand the impact that you guys have done. My question is, we're looking at opening up a new center, but with the current real estate rates and interest rates that are increasing, we're finding it difficult to kind of make the numbers work, and we're wondering if there's plans on additional grants and or loans that'll help businesses kind of start / even expand into the future, knowing how big the demand is currently.
Minister, your response?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to reassure everybody that I am very well aware of the moratorium in the post-secondary sector as well. And, you know, as I said earlier on, this is a complex sector, and there are lots of different moving parts in it. But that is something that I've been asking staff about and talking to staff about. With regard to, like, one particular institution, then, I think I'll have staff kind of reach out and talk to you personally about that. But the general approach with regard to post-secondary and, the future of training and assessment and registration of ECEs is part of our ongoing work and review. The red tape, we are working on some design guidelines to try and facilitate for people designing new centres or expanding, some of the really core approaches to that, and to ease the burden for whoever it might be that, is thinking about designing some new spaces. One of the things I'm not able to talk about, because it's not the responsibility of my ministry, is licensing and the approach to licensing. But we do, the ministry staff do work closely with different municipalities. There are some municipalities out there that have different regulations in addition to whatever the province might issue and whatever is mandated by licensing as well. So do feel free again to reach out to the ministry staff if you're experiencing barriers. We want to work with partners to overcome barriers, because we want to increase capacity and work with partners who want to build spaces, and obviously who know the community and know what types of spaces and services are needed as well. We have found with regard to the costs associated with delivering early learning and childcare, that the approach that we've taken is looking at what is the reality of what it costs in each region to be able to operate and deliver these services. And in fact, this year we've found that most operators have been able to renew the programming, renew the contract with the ministry. And so we haven't found that people have been excluded. So again, if there's a particular situation that you're experiencing, then please don't hesitate to reach out to ministry staff. Thanks.
Thank you. So the questions in the chat from Candace. Can you see the questions in the chat, Minister? So the first one is, are there any plans or processes to have employer site-based childcare options based on space and certainly quick assessments and bonding for parents and their child? If their child is close to parents, seems ideal. Less time separated from parent. So that's from Candace. From Michelle Davies, childcare options. We have many families in Surrey working shift work and non-standard hours, but very few childcare centers who are open non-standard hours. Are there any plans to look at how we can accommodate these families? And then from Maria, good morning. I'm a social planner with the childcare team at the City of Vancouver. I'm curious to know if the province is playing a role in supporting and encouraging school boards across BC to support expansion.
Thank you. Thank you for reading those. I've got them up, Anita. Yes, a great suggestion, and exactly the model of childcare that I was responsible for in a high school, where the vision there was that young people would be completing their high school education and be close to their children, be able to breastfeed if necessary, or continue that attachment and bonding in such a healthy way. So one of the things that we're doing with the New Spaces Fund and with all of our provincial capital investments is looking at where the province is actually building infrastructure. So if we're building hospitals, if we're building schools, if we're building long-term care, building transition housing, building any kind of housing, we're actually looking at can we do childcare as well? Because in all of those spaces, there will be frontline workers, there will be professional staff who then would be able to be at work and have their children close by. And also that's, further investment in community assets. So, we know that for the province to be investing in infrastructure like those kinds of buildings, then hopefully, they should stay as community assets and stay serving the public interest. And so having childcare, early learning childcare services built in there is something that we're actively pursuing, and through our New Spaces Fund and also through other ministries actually looking at incorporating early learning and childcare in their builds that they're responsible for. Yeah, the shift work is really important. We are committed to really trying to support that, and so we're working with providers and looking at through the operating funding model. We are looking at what are the core hours, what needs to be available in order to support the range of shifts and types of work that people want to be able to engage in, and so therefore need childcare for. We actually are piloting and testing a 24-hour childcare facility in Kitimat. So we're going to learn a lot from that as well. And I absolutely appreciate the question. And that is definitely something that we need to be looking at, not just for inclusion, but in order to help people be able to make the contribution they want to in the workforce. And absolutely, we're working with the school districts. We're working with all of the school districts in new builds, in what space they might have to turn into early learning and childcare spaces. There are so many advantages to having early learning and childcare actually on school grounds and as part of the school community. It helps the little British Columbians make that transition from preschool to kindergarten into the K-12 system. We know it leads to better outcomes for them as well. There are opportunities there with the workforce as well that we're exploring, and really working closely with school districts on before and after school care as well. So for families, for the children themselves and for the parents, that it's a seamless day for children and youth, so that their before school care and after school care is actually in the same place and part of the same school community. Again, we know that leads to beneficial outcomes for the whole family. We actually have created a much easier and a single dedicated portal for school districts to apply for various programs within the ministry, because we really see the benefits of engaging with school districts and working in partnership with school districts for all of our programs and all of our vision for increasing capacity. Thank you.
Minister Dean, on that, I was at the Surrey School Board delivering a presentation on Tuesday night, and one of the things that we're facing in Surrey is an exploding population, and keeping pace with school infrastructure is next to impossible. Notwithstanding the fact there needs to be revolutionary change in provincial government funding to high growth areas. But now, because of the exploding population, kids are going to be on a scheduled curriculum. So a group will go in the morning to early afternoon, and then some will go to late afternoon, early evening. And so families will need additional childcare support that is not traditional timing. So that's just something for all of us to consider as childcare providers or those that are interested in the childcare economy. So I just wanted to mention that to you, Minister.
Thank you for that, Anita. We do have staff on the call who will be able to pass that along to their colleagues in the education side of the ministry.
Thank you. So additional questions in the chat function from Sammy Gwai, who's our Music City Centre partner. Music is known to be fundamental in learning and cognitive development. My sister Nadine is an ECE in Montreal, and we've actually created a line of educational development music for babies, toddlers, and young children called Sing with Nadine. What focus is there on the inclusion of music in BC's early childhood education plans? And then from Andrea, number one, where are those ECEs who earn $29 an hour? And what makes this possible? Even our infant toddler staff are only making $20.60 and will receive a minimal increase of maybe 3% on June 1st. Number two, considering that our wait lists for 3 to 5 and infant toddler are 20 to 30 families long, and that many families age out before we even call them to offer them spaces, why are we projecting that Surrey will grow in amount of 500,000 people in the next while? Where are their children going to be cared for? And the reason I'm stating the questions is because we are recording today's session. So Minister, over to you.
Thank you so much. So part of the test of the operating funding model is to actually have a look at what are the core services that are expected to be delivered in order to create a good quality, inclusive and affordable early learning and childcare core service for families. So that, as I was saying earlier on, we can have a look at what the revenues are and what the expenses are. And some programs will continue to offer some additional options above and beyond what the core services are. And so we're continuing to have a look at that. So I would really appreciate it if there are, really great examples of programming in this sector. If people could send that information to the ministry, that would be great. That's an interesting question about the $29 an hour, and I will ask staff to have a look into that to be able to be reassured that the $29 an hour is the average that we're seeing around the province. So I will ask staff to have a look into that. And we need to continue building. We really need to continue with all of our partners building and expanding licensed, good quality, affordable, inclusive childcare. So we've just finished a stream of new space funding applications, and we've been reviewing them. And so we are looking to increase the number of new spaces. And then later on this year, we will be opening up that funding stream again for more applications to come in. And again, we do have the dedicated portal for school districts. And we also have the approach provincially of where we're building public buildings, having a look at how we can increase childcare spaces in there as well. So I will say that we have increased the number of licensed spaces from about 110,000 to over 144,000. And Surrey, as I was saying in my notes earlier on, the increase in Surrey has been 35%, which is actually higher than the provincial average. So, we're very mindful of the growth in Surrey. I come from a very high growth area as well out in the West Shore. And we know that the social infrastructure as well as the physical infrastructure has to keep pace. So, early learning childcare as a core service and lots of other provincial services need to be planned for as communities are growing very quickly. Thank you.
Did you respond to the question about music?
I did, yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so City of White Rock Councillor Bill Lawrence, question in the chat. Why is there little to no support from the government to provide ELC providers? I think he meant ECE providers. From Christy, there was talk to eventually phase out the ECCE wage enhancement by 25-26 and provide some sort of other funding. Where is the ministry in this? My children's center is on university campus, and we have ensured our ECCEs are protected from any reductions through our collective agreement? And what will be an option for non-unionized or centers who haven't added this protection to their own CAs? And then from Jennifer Siemens, can you speak to the role private childcare providers have currently and long-term with being key stakeholders in BC's vision for childcare? With being excluded from New Spaces funding streams, this creates uncertainty within the private sector that private providers may not be a component of the long-term affordable childcare plan. Minister.
Yes, thank you for that. I'll take the both of the private providers' questions together. And I think I think I've answered the question already regarding let me just see here, the EC wage enhancement. So we'll look what will happen eventually there is the wage grid. So that work is ongoing. It's part of the operating funding model. And I think I described that earlier on, that we're continuing that work. But in the meantime, we're providing $6 per hour for ECEs who are working in operators that are signed up to work with the province. So with regard to private providers, they're a really significant partner. Lots of families access early learning and childcare for their children through private providers. And in fact, of the whole of the sector, of all of the providers, 96% are signed on to the program. And that's fantastic, because that means the parents whose children are attending those centres are able to receive the affordability measures that I talked about earlier on. So private providers who are licensed and who are signed up to the program with the province are able to access the Childcare Operating Fund. That's one of the funding streams. They're also able to access the Childcare Fee Reduction Initiative. So I talked about that earlier on, and nearly $300 million across all programming has gone back into the pockets of parents in Surrey since 2018 because of these initiatives, which I'm sure people on this call can appreciate. With global inflation, rising costs, this is making a real difference to families and also to local economies, because families are able to make different choices about where they're able to spend their money as well. And we also have the affordable childcare benefit as well for some families. So through private providers, we're able to flow those benefits for parents. And so, I just want to say at the ministry, we really appreciate the partnership and the service that's delivered to families in Surrey by private providers. We are focusing the New Spaces Fund on new spaces that will be built as community assets. So new spaces that are going to be built by the province, by non-profits, by Indigenous organisations, because we know that they will remain in the community and remain community assets. But we do also have for other businesses the startup grant as well. So for other businesses that want to be able to get involved with the affordability programming, we do have grant programs too. So again, I would say if there are people on this call who are delivering early learning and childcare and they are a for-profit organisation or a private business and want to find out more about how to benefit from the programs, then please do reach out to staff in the ministry, and all of the different options and the ways of accessing them will be made available. So there is that startup grants program, and we don't want to be losing any childcare spaces. We want to hear from you if there are issues or barriers that are being experienced out in community.
And we also ask you to email the Surrey Board of Trade I'll put my email address in the chat function, and then we can follow up with the ministry for you. Minister, thank you so much for responding to all these questions. Childcare is a hot topic, as you can see. Some more questions in the chat from Margie. Thank you for all the work that has happened to move towards a public system. How is the Ministry of Education and Childcare working with other ministries and local governments to streamline funding for new spaces, especially in light of new provincial legislation and targeted at municipalities? From Maria, we are aware that the province is working towards provincial childcare design guidelines to ensure quality new public and nonprofit spaces. Is there an expected release date for the guidelines? From the South Surrey White Rock Chamber of Commerce, thank you for having us today. Is there a focus on before-after school care, with a focus on care for professional development days, summer break, spring break, and winter breaks? Our office is struggling to find care for our school-aged children. Minister, over to you.
Thank you for that. I was smiling because I was already wanting to make some of these points, and actually these are the questions and the areas that people are interested in. So that's really great. It's interesting you call childcare a hot topic. I think it's really exciting. Obviously I sit at the cabinet table, and I talk to all of my colleagues who are responsible for other ministries and show them how building a system of childcare is making a difference to the work that they're doing as well. So I find it really exciting. It makes a difference to the work across the whole of government, makes a difference to the economy, to jobs, to local economy, because of putting money back in the pockets of parents. And when I go to childcare centres, the frontline staff are really happy because they're much more recognised and much more valued in receiving that $6 an hour increase. The operators are happy because they can see the benefits for families. The families are happy because they're getting that relief with the affordability measures, and the kids are so happy because they're just getting such great education and play. So yeah, just to talk about other partners, there's a range of other public entities. So I probably didn't list them all, but municipalities would be included. If a municipality has a piece of land or has the ability to, in fact, municipalities can and do apply to the New Spaces Fund. So, we know that when municipalities are building, and they don't have to necessarily operate them, they could build a partnership to operate them. But municipalities get it. They understand that their communities, families who live in their community, need childcare. Again, as I said earlier on, families in my community commute for childcare before they then even commute in the crawl that we have over here. So, and especially as we were talking about earlier on, fast-growing communities need to be thinking ahead and investing and building those partnerships and investing in building new spaces to be able to respond to the community as well. The New Spaces funding has been published, so we are going to be opening up the New Spaces funding stream again, and people can sign up to our newsletter. If you go to the ministry website, you just subscribe, and then you'll get all the regular updates. But we did publish the funding proposal guidelines for the New Spaces Fund on the 2nd of May. So people can start thinking about that. We're not open yet for proposals to come in, but especially, and again, this is where I come from. If you're looking at some kind of collaboration in the community, or wanting to really understand what's the need, to think about, do you want infant toddler, before and after school care? You can start having that conversation and start thinking about how to shape the proposal for your community, because the guidelines are already published. We are focusing on before and after school care. We know that is a really high level of need. Again, in my community, you know, that's what I hear from families all the time. And so, you know, thinking about when school isn't operating and available and taking care of our children, we need to have a look at how we can work with school districts to fill those gaps, and also work with the workforce and work with the labour movement as well, to have a look at what are the options there for really making sure that it's a benefit for those children who need that out of school hours childcare, and also that we can really maximise the benefits for the school community and for the workforce as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please raise your hand. We have 10 more minutes. Councillor Starchuk, do you have any words? Or MLA Starchuk, I should say.
Oh, that was
I've
good.
known you in both.
That was good. No, thanks, Anita. And thank you to the minister. I think there was one question that was earlier on about businesses and providing childcare at the business, and it just struck me because we were at a funding announcement back in November for Punjab Milks, with a big expansion that they're doing down there, and they're actually incorporating 39 childcare spaces into their operation that's there, with the intent that if they are unable to fill those spots, other businesses that are in the area can go ahead and utilize them, and they were going to be running a couple of shifts, I believe, in that workplace. So they were going to be offering them up for those odd hours as well. So I'm pretty pleased and happy that that's taking place on a granular city wide basis. We're seeing a lot of developments where they have to have amenity spaces, and sometimes a lot of those amenity spaces are just places to hold birthday parties and AGMs and stuff like that. And it's my understanding that we're starting to see some of these townhouse and condominium projects that have these spaces, trying to find providers to provide childcare space, so that when you're actually leaving your townhouse complex, you drop off your children. Then when you come home from work at the end of the day, it's that way. So that's about all the councillor will add to this.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Minister, any closing remarks?
Thank you so much for that. Can I just double check with my ADM if there was any technical content that I've missed that would be helpful to share with everybody, Patty?
Thank you, Minister. I was muted there for a second. I think this is really great. I was just, listening to MLA Starchuk speak, and I was just thinking about the Kelowna Airport that has childcare spaces in it. So a business that's able for airport employees. So that's really great. I think the thing that we'd like to add from the staff is that there's some federal funding coming for the person, that was asking about whether there's any more funding for builds. And there is some federal funding that maybe we should mention. And it is like there's going to be $1 billion announced, that's just recently been announced, for student loans. And then there's going to be 60 million in payable grants to public and not-for-profit childcare providers, which will be administered through CMHC. So that's something that the person that asked about questions about the builds, those will be coming out, and more details will be coming from the federal government. That's just the announcement that's come so far. So more will be coming on that. And I think, Minister, you answered everything else that we could think of. We're doing lots of work with before and after school care on school grounds. We've got early learning and childcare leads that are out in the school districts that are helping us with that. So I think everything else we've answered, and we're happy to take anything away. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them directly our way. You can send them through to me, and we can get that to our various programs. So thank you, Minister.
We do have two more small comments. One in the chat from Charmaine Francis from BC Family Hearing Care. I'm wondering if there is any increase in provincial funding for supported child development. I work with the BC Family Hearing Resource Centre. We have specialized bilingual childcare programs for deaf and hard of hearing children, as well as hearing children in the community. Many children require one-to-one support, but wait lists are quite long. And then Ken, final word, and then the minister.
Oh, thank you. Just a couple of reflections. There are those who get anxious when governments spend money, and I mean that's where they're coming from. But governments like ours, I'll include BC and the federal governments, will use the term investment more. And a good example is the Canada Child Benefit, which in our Fleetwood-Port Kells riding puts $7 million a month on kitchen tables of families who really need it. And what a lot of people, they look at the dollar figures, but not understand the impact. As that $7 million ripples through our local economy, it generates many, many more times that amount of spending. And if you look at the Fraser Highway corridor, you see that there were more businesses open after the deepest of the restrictions during the pandemic than there was before the pandemic. That plus the quality of life issues and some of the other things all make these investments good. But one key thing, and that is that when governments invest, it's not like a business investing. A business invests in new materials, new buildings, new equipment, and they see, hopefully a return on that investment in terms of sales and revenue. When governments invest, the benefits actually accrue to the community. The debt is left on the government's books, but the real benefits happen at street level. And this is why those who get all anxious about government spending are missing a key point, but it's a point that we understand quite clearly, and I believe the BC government does as well.
Minister.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the question regarding inclusion as well. That's something that's really dear to my heart, and Patty and the rest of her staff will tell you that I ask a lot of questions about that. How are we making sure that early learning and childcare is truly inclusive? How do we build those partnerships with the different therapists and the other supports that some children and youth need? And I've seen some really good examples of that, and we're working actually on an inclusion strategy. And so, those kind of questions are very live to us at the moment. And I appreciate that we have allies out there in the field and in the sector as well. And just to wrap up, Anita, thank you. I just want to say thank you to everybody for such a respectful conversation, and for the understanding and the commitment from the business community about how important childcare is. And as you said, showing that leadership of actually recognizing and valuing early learning and childcare, and seeing how that really helps communities thrive and local economies thrive as well. And I'm really excited. I've been looking at some of the new space funding proposals that have been coming in, and they're just really inspiring. You're absolutely committed providers who really want to make a difference in their community, who understand their community, who are able to build partnerships and build early learning and childcare as a core service, and also as a responsive service to the needs of local communities. And again, to make sure that the early learning and childcare core service is inclusive, it's culturally safe, it's accessible, and knowing what a difference that makes for the developmental outcomes for those children and for those families and for the community and for the economy. So thank you again so much.
Thank you so much, Minister. The conversation and dialogue doesn't end here. I did put my email address in the chat function, anita@businessinsurrey.com. And we ask you, we need the on-the-ground intelligence. All of our government officials on the call today also require your intelligence of what it is that you're facing, so we can still continue to move on the journey of effective and accessible childcare to help our workforces and our business community. Everyone, thank you so much, and make it a great business day.